morning. Thanks for joining. Today we are in very last session of ABAP on HANA. So what do we want to? One second. Yep. So yes, good morning. Thanks for joining. Today we are in the last session, 10th session number 10 of ABAP on HANA. We started our journey with new ABAP syntaxes, then we went through the CDS, then we started with AMDP. And we also now at a stage where we know what is an SQL script, how we can write AMDP, what is the purpose and everything. Now let's just go one more step forward. There are certain functions at AMDP level which are very important whenever you're writing SQL script coding. So those sort of built-in function libraries that we are left to cover. So we would be going through that right now. Post that I can say we have certain keywords called default null, exit handler. What is that? That is something we would be seeing. Then translation keywords, if null, null, if date functions. Afterwards, there would be one very important topic called fuzzy search. So we know in CDS also we learned fuzzy search, where even though the user's input is not matching with the exact content of the data type or database, the system was able to search the content. But those search that we were doing was not a column specific. If I say I want to search from 5 different column, it was possible. Now over here, when I say fuzzy search, I can give a fuzzy search based on a column. So that is something we would be seeing. Then parallel processing. So till now you might have seen that whenever I'm doing some sort of processing, it was taking a individual work process, it was completing it task. Then again, if I am in the loop, second iteration would continue and likewise. Many a time you might feel that whenever I'm in a batch process or somewhere, it would be good if I can detach the process in a way that they can process individually. If multiple line of execution does not need the earlier line's execution to get completed. So at that particular point in time, we can choose to go with the parallel processing, and that is something we would be seeing. You would be seeing how what is an AMDP body, what is a fallback class into it, the filters, and how actually we can see and implement those into the system. That is something we would be seeing now. Okay. So let's just go with the quick recap first, and then we would be seeing that. So in the earlier session, what we started with is we started with the object-oriented operations. So OOPS operation called inheritance. So we figured out that when I do have a parent class, which is AMDP, or like AMDP class, and if I create a child class out of that, then definitely it would inherit the properties of child class, inherit the properties of parent class, and the child class would also become a AMDP class. Then we see how a changing variable and a table needs a special treatment compared to the importing, exporting, and the returning. So the hidden parameter we learned. Then we started learning data declaration, the internal table operations, the create, update, delete operation. We are yet to cover this case statement and the joins and the UUID. That is something we would be seeing now. So let's just go into the system and see. What we did is we created a parent class. As a part of that parent class, we learned that if I am defining a parent class which is having a marker interface inside that, it means it's a AMDP class. If I do have a method with just a definition, not a implementation, then it means it's an abstract method. And for an abstract method to be there, I have to define this class also as an abstract. If I am defining a class as an abstract and I want the child class to implement the remaining behavior, or I can say remaining method of a parent class, I can't define this my particular class as a final. So I just disabled, or I can say commented out this particular final keyword, because final means this is a final version of the class and no inheritance would be possible going forward. So I just commented this out. Then I created a child class. So as a part of the child class, if you see what we just did is we did the redefinition of the method which was there in the parent. This whole structure is there residing in the parent class. Here I don't have a marker interface, but still my child class would behave as a AMDP class. So I can create an AMDP method inside that. Here we learn that we can do the data declaration as we did in individual variable connected with a data element, a table type variable. And if I want to also copy the variables type, then I can also do like table like. In case I want to go with the modularization, we learn that we can get the sessions information over here. For example, we created a separate method out of here and we call that method from one method is being called from another. We whatever external component, be it a database table or object oriented AMDP method, if you want to call one from another, we have to declare it in the using clause. That is something we did. After doing that, our this particular method would be called. So we have to declare it in using and specify the fully qualified name of that method. So we can say name of the class and the name of the method. It would get triggered and the whatever lines of code has been written over here would get executed. Okay. Then we learn that we can have a select statement which can select the set of data over here. We can figure out the total number of lines. So these are the internal table operations we started with. If I want to write a condition, I can have if else. Here we don't have a bracket. Here we have a semicolon as a terminating, and we can have a while loop as well. Here we don't have a append statement because we don't have a work area over here. All we have is whenever I am assigning a particular field with that particular line, okay, at that particular point in time, a line would get created. So we are incrementing the index as well. We learn that an internal table can have a insert and a append as well in a normal ABAP. So same is possible over here. When I want to insert, I can say some table name dot insert list of field we have to provide, and then we can say index of the record. So I can say 1, 2, 3. Likewise, at any number of any point in time we want to insert, we can do that. If I say append, what I'm doing is I am appending the record at very end. It means I am ensuring that my previous records are preserved, and then I am appending a new records on top of that. Okay. So we just selected the existing data, did the union, and then we inserted the new record. Okay, and here we learn that when I am treating a change table, a hidden parameter in would get created that would be used for reading purpose, other one would be used for writing purpose. That is something we used over here. Okay, then we learn that whenever I'm not using read only over here, as we did over here, if I omit this read only, then my AMDP method also become capable of performing the create, update, delete operation. So that is what I did. We perform create, update, delete operation on the YE0 T01. So here we do have an insert. This inserts allows us to insert a new record. Like we do have a modify in ABAP, same way we do have upsert in the same way we do have upsert over here. Afterward, when I say delete, I can specify the fully qualified key. Same goes with the update. And if I want to insert or update only partial column out of here, then we can also do that. So this is something that we learned in the earlier session. Now, what we can do is we can enhance our this example, okay, and we can say I want to learn few more concepts. So, okay, let's just say I want to create one more AMDP method over here. I can say PO operation procedure importing. We can provide and in the exporting. I can say I can have data whose type is PO data. Okay, just allow me a moment. Okay. So now we would be doing the implementation for this because we just did the definition. We don't have implementation provided yet. I'll just do the implementation now. It would create an implementation. So now we do have a method created. if we want to do the implementation with using a database procedure, what we have to do? We have to specify the information called by database procedure for HANA database language. We can mention it as a, and let's just say we want to perform a read operation. Okay. Now, what we want to do over here is we want to perform some sort of data selection. As we do have an exporting parameter, let's just do the data selection over here. I can say get the PO data over here. And specifically for this, let's just say we are more interested in having certain more set of columns. I'll just copy this over here and do one more data declaration. I can say type declaration. I can say TTPO data in the child class, which I do have. I am more interested in this. So here we have a table type, which is of my child class. So I do have this set of column which I want to select. Contains a database procedure, which means TTPO data can't have a structured type. Yeah, definitely it would be a TTPO. Now, let's just say I want to select the data ETPO data equal to select EBLN UKRS RT TYP ENM edit. And here we would be saying we can get the data from EKKO where my mandate equal to session underscore context. Now, this EKKO that we are using over here is not declared, so we would be defining it in the using over here. Okay. So we have the data that we are getting in the return. Now, what we are interested over here is, let's just say I want to extend my example in a way that I don't have only data for the EKKO table. I want few more information from EKPO as well. Okay. So I can say I want EBLP, which is coming from my EBLP. I want a material number. I have a short text, for example, and let's just say quantity, and let's just say unit of measure. Okay. After having this, let's just say I want to select the data from two tables. So this is becoming my full table data that I'm interested in. Now, till this time, till this point in time, I was just selecting data from my single table, EKKO. Now I would be selecting data from my child table as well. So here we would be saying I would need one more table as I want to use the information from EKPO table as well. So that is what I did. Now, as we are writing open SQL statement, we all know how I can write a join in a open SQL statement. Same way we would be going over here. If I do have a EKKO, let me just give it as an alias EH. And for example, I want to go with some sort of inner join. So I can say inner join. So it means I would only be getting the line item for the purchase order where there is at least one. Sorry, I would be getting the purchase order headers where at least one line item is defined. I can say EH EBLN. Sorry, and EP EBLN. Okay. Now all the columns that I selected from here, I can say those belong to EH because that is where actually we selected it from. Now we want to select some sort of line item information. Okay. Then what are the other column? Metna text. And this particular mandate also belongs in both the tables. So I can say I want it from header. So we have this particular, okay, one more filter I think we had over here, pbucrs. So let's just use that as well to filter down the data. So after selecting the data, we have the data coming from two tables and we use the inner join over here. So the join we do have, and it would behave the same way as a normal join would behave. We already are using join in a normal ABAP. We are using join in a CDS. Same way it goes with the AMDP. There are some sort of speciality when it comes to a join declaration in AMDP, but that is something we are coming to right now. First of all, let's just try consuming this one. So let's just say I have a consumption program over here. Let's just create one more. I want to create a web program. We do have anything called a web program? No. I can say ZBM double two AMDP C3 consumption 3. Okay, now we want to call this particular class. So we all know if it's an object oriented, how we can call a particular method of a class. We have to instantiate the particular object first. Now we want to call this method. We can do that. We can say ILO AMDPC, your operation, and we would have one more input parameter called pbucrs. Okay, let's just try displaying the data. I can say I want to display the data from 1710 and As you can see, we can see all the set of data which is being passed. Okay. Now one thing which we want to learn over here. Okay, so let's just start with one of the important thing. Here we just wrote that we want the data as a inner join. Okay, now when it comes to joins, we can have a inner join or left outer join. So we can have different kind of joins. I'll just say I want the data using inner join. It means I want only the line from the right hand side table where at least there is one line item on the left hand side. So I mean only matching records we want. If I want to go other way around, I can say I want all the data. I want all the data from left hand side table and only matching record from right hand side table. That is something we can call it as a left outer join. That is something we did, and then we would be able to fetch that information over here in that particular manner as well. So we are getting the records as well likewise. So I say that I want some sort of button because I can do the shortings. So here we have all the lines and we can also have some record. So luckily we have purchase order with all the lines always. So we don't have any purchase order without line. That's a good thing. But as it's left outer join, we can expect that without line item purchase order can also appear over here. Now, this is a normal thing which every SQL statement does have, inner join, left outer join. When we were learning CDS view, we learned that we used to have something called some sort of cardinality, right? When I say a cardinality, what it is, so let's just say I do have a parent entity and I do have a child entity. It means I do have a parent table and a child table. I do have a first table and the second table which I am joining. Right. Now, for one record of purchase order header, there can be, let's just say, n number of line item record. This relation we actually determined as something called cardinality. That relationship between parent and child table with how many records an dependent table can contain with reference to its parent is called a cardinality relation. In CDS view, we used to have cardinality that we define. In normal ABAP, we never define a cardinality. But when it comes to an AMDP, we can also define cardinality. Okay. When it was in CDS, what was the impact of defining a cardinality? From output behavior perspective, we were getting all the records. So just a second. Okay. So we can have in when it comes to CDS, whenever we do have a cardinality specified, then there is a possibility that we can get the records even though they are overruling the cardinality. So when we are executing a view at that particular point in time, cardinality used to only be a semantic information. It did not have any sort of behavioral changes. Okay. Same goes with the AMDP. Here we have a cardinality that we can specify, and it would help us to make our code more readable. So for example, I can say EKKO and EKPO are connected. They are connected with left outer join, but this left outer can be one to many. So I can say I do have a left outer join which is one to many. For one record of left hand side, there can be one to many number of records available in EKPO. Okay, and that is something we can define. So if I say I do have a set of record over here for, let's just say, what did just happen? Where are we getting duplicate records? Nice. That's good to know. We have BUKRS left out. Good. So good thing is we have a bug. So let's just try to figure out what is happening over here. Okay. But when I say left out or one too many, it means I am specifying that there can be more than one records available as well. Same goes over here. When I say left out or one to one, we are saying that with one record of left hand side table, there can only be one record of line item. And same goes over here. We can also have one to one and one to many relationship being specified over here. If I want to specify a inner join, so if I want to specify a inner join, but here also I want to specify the cardinality, I can do that one to one or one to many. So for example, I am saying one to many over here. Let me just activate this. Let's see what is happening. Okay, it seems, yeah, we might have missed one more thing. Whenever we are specifying join, we know that this client of parent and the client ID of child should be equal. It should not join the data which is cross client. Yeah, now we do have a unique record because earlier we were filtering down the record of header, but ultimately when it comes to join, it was joining the record even though they belong to a separate client. Okay, because we have not used a join condition over here. That is what we did on the client ID, and now we are good over here. So main emphasize over here is when it comes to a join, we can have a inner join, left outer join, as we do have it usually. But to make it more readable, I can make it more readable by specifying one to one and one to many. One more thing that we learned over here is whenever we are joining two tables. As we specified the session context in the where clause, same way while joining also we should only join the dedicated record. Otherwise, we would end up getting the duplicate records. So that's why in the joining as well, we would be specifying the client information. Okay. Now, let's just go one more step further. To make it more understandable, I'll just say I want to promote these two columns because a purchase order would be having its line item number, it would be having a material code, and material would be belonging to a particular company code. That is something we want to emphasize over here. I'll just say activate. It would give me error for sure because the columns are not arranged over here. Where is the Matna? It is also over here. So we don't have any error now. I can just say close this. Okay, we have the class activated now. Let's just re-execute this. and we do have the data available with us. Now, let's just learn one concept which is very important. Okay, so we have the data arranged with us. After having all the data, let's just learn a concept of row number and a rank. Okay, so in normal ABAP, in normal ABAP, we many a time requires grouping their set of data for doing some sort of analysis and something. So when I say I want to group the data, okay, so in ABAP we used to have a certain hook methods at loop level, or I can say control break statement, and we also learn a group by keyword also when it comes to a normal ABAP. Whenever I am getting the data on from the database layer, if I also want some sort of identification which can help me group the data, then we can rely on row number and rank for that. Let's just understand this row number and rank with a very simple example. For example, we can say I do have a school. In school, I do have a standard number. I can say the first standard, there are some students who are studying. There are second standard, third standard, and fourth standard, for example. In first standard, there are 100 students. In second standard, there are 20 students. In third standard, there are 50, and here there are 70. So when I say I want to identify each of the student uniquely, what I can give them? I can give them a roll number, right? So I can say I can have two student with the same name. So I can't rely on the name. Instead, I can give them a roll number. You can visualize in an organization, I can have two employee with the same name. So I can give them employee ID. Okay. And to distinguish the employee ID, I can give the department wise employee ID, which is also possible, which we never do that. That's why school example is more relevant over here. So I can say I do have a class which is having 100 students. So those 100 students roll number, or I can say row number in case of this particular concept, it would start from 1 and go till 100. Now let's just say there was an exam which was conducted within the class. Each student appeared for the exam, and after exam was completed, they were given their result. As per the result, one student scored 98%, two students scored 95%, and one more student scored 93%. So when I want to give the rank in the class, what I can say is who is standing at rank number 1. So I can say this particular student who scored 98% is having a rank number 1. The student who is scoring 95% is at rank number 2. But as there are two students, this both of the students rank would be 2. Rank, it means their position in the class. How many students are there before that particular student? Okay, that is something we want to emphasize over here. When I say a person who scored 93%, he scored the third highest in the class. But as there are already three students who have scored better than him, his rank would be 4 in the class. So when I come say row number, it means it is the position, or I can say individual ID which I have given to the class to identify each student uniquely. And rank is the position at which that particular student stands in the particular class. Same goes with the records. So for example, I want to group my set of information where I am over here. Group my set of information. Currently, I do have a data over here, but here I can have a material belonging to a company code. Okay, I can have a material belonging to a company code, and that particular material which is belonging to a company code can be there inside multiple purchase orders. So all I want to give is I want to give them individual ID with the help of which I can group those records. So to make this example more easier or and I can say scalable, let me just remove the company code from here. So I can have a huge amount of data. And the record which we are talking about over here, I'll just go over here and say, I want to give a unique row ID to each of the record. Okay, to each of the record, I want to give a unique row ID. So as I am planning to treat company code as a class, material number as an individual student, I want to give the row number based on this. So I can say, let's just say I want to generate a row ID over here and whose data type I want to give it as a scitabix, for example. So now let's just say I want to generate a row ID. So to generate a row ID, what we do have is we have to specify at which particular position we want to do it. We want to do it after position number met now. So I would be saying I want some sort of column, let's just say one as a row ID. Now this one is a fixed row ID. I want to get it generated dynamically. I can say row number that should get generated and over what particular resources it should get generated. It should get generated per company code. Okay, if I want to get it generated per company code, I would say partition my all the information by company code. Okay, so I want to partition all the set of information by a company code over here. When I say company code over here, I have to write it in double inverted comma. And as company code belongs to two different table, I want to specify. I have to specify which particular table I want the company code to be picked up. I can say eh.bukrs. I want the company code to be picked up. So that would be there outside of the double inverted comma. I also do have an option of ordering my set of information so that the visibility of those can be more accurate. So let's just say I want to order my data by, let's just say material number in the ascending manner. So what the system would do is it would generate the row number. It would by partitioning the information in a company code, for example, in a class, and per material number, it would give the row number. If I just close this and if I just go over here, here if you see what the system did is for 1710, there are list of purchase order line where we don't have any sort of material specified. Then for 1710, we do have 904, which is a material number. So it is standing, its row number is 55. Okay. Same way over here, 1710, 2222, likewise. If I just scroll down a bit, I would understand that 1710 is a particular, I think you can say it's a huge company code. Yeah. So let's just say after 1710, there would be this 4910s, 4900 starting, which is having certain materials. So it's again, its positioning, its row ID would be starting from 1. If I say, okay, that is also getting completed and I want to search for something new. For example, there was one UD01, which was having 64 records total. So those are having their individual row numbers defined. So you can understand this company code is a class. Within that, I give individual row number to individual materials. So I can easily group the data if I want to group it based on a particular component, and that is something that can be done using a row number. Now, many a time we might feel that okay, rather than going with row number, it would be good if I can get the details which can give me how many at which particular position my particular material is trending. And for that we do have a rank ID. So if I want to generate a rank ID, okay, like we use a row number, same way we can use a rank. And here we would be again using over as we use over here. So now we know what is the purpose of over. So we are partitioning the data again based on company code, and material number is something based on which we are ultimately grouping the data again. So it would give the rank for each of those individual records. The moment I close, if I just say execute, so here we see that 3900 has 171 whose roll number are 1, 2, 3, 4. But when it comes to a rank, then 3900 has a 171 as a material, which is standing at rank number 1 because that is a short. If I short it ascending, it is standing at a first. 173 when it comes to 173 is there are all duplicates, so there are total 4 row number. But when it comes to a rank, those are 1, 2, 2, 2. Again, there are the new material number which is starting, and that would directly jump onto the 5 because there are already 4 preceding those. So that is a rank within the particular class, within the particular group. Okay, so that is the meaning of a row number and rank number. We can partition the data based on an individual component that we want to. Here we partition the data based on a company code. Okay, and we can have a offset of a individual group that we can individually easily achieve, and we can um, apply the logic that we want to. Okay, so that is the meaning of a row number and a rank, and partition by something that would help us grouping the data. So this is how these built-in functions would help us. If I go one more step forward over here, and let's just say we also had learned some sort of statements, some sort of I can say case statement with the help of which I can, say dynamic column can be generated, and its content would not be something that would be coming from the database, but based on a certain condition, I can give out the data. So for example, I want to say case when my eh.bukrs is equal to, for example, 1710. I want to say Indian company code. Sorry, I forgot the when. And if it's a bukrs equal to, let's just say EW01, I want to say European company code. And I can say else it would be a others. And I want to generate a column which is very dynamic, and it would be getting the content based on that. So I can do that. So it is a case statement which would help us assign the values based on different condition. Let's just activate. So these are 3900 likewise, and so we can have a dynamic column getting generated based on the condition that we are specifying over here. So it's the same in new ABAP syntax that we did. We already did that in the CDS also we learned, and same is also applicable over here, because in all of those cases we are using OpenSQL statements. Okay, so most of the things that we have already learned over here can be incorporated in any of this particular ABAP on HANA artifact. Okay, now let's just say I want to go one more step forward and generate some sort of unique ID. So for example, we are grouping the data over here, But after grouping the data, I want to give those individual line which are belonging to a company code and a material number a unique identity. Okay, this is a particular tag that it belongs to. I want to generate a runtime generated ID. Using that, I can individually identify that record uniquely. Okay, we do have a purchase order number which is a user readable primary key, but instead I want to generate a primary key which is very unique in itself. Okay, so that particular unique key gets generated. Okay, UUID we are talking about, and that UUID is nothing but a unique key which gets generated based on time, location, and everything. And as a time, when I say a time, it's a day, time, seconds, milliseconds, which cannot come again. So when I say currently today is 16th of April 2022, 12:03 and millisecond number 55, and it's gone. It cannot repeat itself at that particular point in time, at that particular location. That cannot be repeated, and that's why the unique ID is something that is very, very, very less likely to get repeated, and that's why we can consider it as a unique ID. If you want to generate a unique ID, what we can do is we can have a keyword called UUID. Okay, and I can generate a unique ID, and maybe we can also have unique ID many places at the database level. So I can pick the data element also from the database if I want. I can say, let's just say I want to generate some sort of unique ID, some generated unique ID I want to search for. So yeah, there is this Chenka function UUID, which is, if you see, it is a UUID in character format, and it is of type 32 characters. So I want to pick this. What I can do is I can say for this particular record, I want to give a unique ID whose type I am giving like this. So how I can give the value to this particular unique ID? I have to give a unique name, a unique ID information to this unique ID. And for that, all we have to depend on the system's generated unique ID. I can say I want to go with a sys UUID. When you say sys UUID, it would a system generated unique ID that would get generated. You can say activate, and never anytime in the world this unique ID can repeat itself. That's why many a time for generating any sort of primary key, when many a time we use incremental or number range or something, these unique ID are also nowadays very popular when it comes to ID generation. So if you see, this is 8A something, this 9616, those IDs that just got generated. But if you execute the same program again, then you would find that a new ID is getting generated. You are not getting the same ID again. Okay, it's a F6 something. So it's altogether different. It's very much impossible that this ID would get repeated. Okay. So that is a meaning of unique ID. And it's not that we can only have this unique ID generated as a part of this SQL statement. Let's just say we already learned that how we can declare a variable, right? So for example, for a particular instance, I want to generate a unique ID. So I can say LV unique ID. And if I want to give a data type, how I can give, I can say abap.type over here. And I want to generate a unique ID of this type. And all I can do is I can just instantiate this unique ID. I can say, and that's it. So this particular unique ID variable would have a unique ID assigned to it. So it can be used at a SQL level. It can also be used at a single statement assignment level. Because where actually we are in a context of a full SQL environment. Okay, we are in a context of an SQL script. It means the statement that we are using over here, same is applicable over here as well. Now, so that is something that we covered, that we had left in the earlier session. The joints we learned, the unique ID we learned, and the case statement we already learned. After that, we also started with a SQL functions, the row number, partition by, and rank. That is something we learned. Okay. One thing that you might have observed is when I was trying to assign this particular record over here, exporting parameter, by mistakenly I copied this particular text instead of this and pasted it over here. There I started getting an error. If you observe this closely, what it says is it says the method PO operation DP. So this is the name of the method, contains a database procedure because we have defined it in the by database procedure, which means that ETPO data can't have a structured type. That is something we had discussed earlier in the earlier session. At that particular point in time, I have just made the statement. It was not proven. Now it is proven. So if you see, we can define a individual variable. If I want to return a individual username, I can say okay EV name, which is possible. A changing parameter, everything is possible. But a structure type, I mean a structure, let's just say EKKO structure, which is containing 5 fields, I can't return that. I can always return the tabular type of that. So it means database procedure can't work with a structured type or a work area kind of thing. It always works with either an individual scalar variable or a tabular variable. Okay. Earlier section we learned that if I want to in earlier session we learned that if we want to um, if we want to clear any sort of internal table, what we did is we wrote some sort of invalid condition and then we were good over here. Let's just say we are using this example and we are having company code as an input. Okay. If I just activate this semicolon, okay. If I just execute this program, and here instead of passing a valid company code, let's just say I'm passing 1790, which is an invalid company code. I can expect I won't get any sort of data. Correct. Now, let's just say I want to go in a different direction. Here I am passing a scalar variable, company code as an input and a tabular data as my output. Here, what I want to have is I want to have a purchase order number, for example, as an input. And here, whatever purchase order number I pass, I am expecting its company code, relevant company code to be part of my output. That is something I am expecting. I can say EKKO BUKRS. Now, what I can have over here is this particular purchase order I would be getting in an input. I would be treating that and EVBUKRS is something that I'll be populating. Now, if I do have a purchase order, can I get the company code? Right? It is very easy. All I have to do is I have to get the company code. Now, when it comes to a tabular data, when it comes to a tabular data, for example, ETPO data, how I can write the select query? You can write the select query in a format of LHS equal to RHS. But when it comes to a select single kind of thing, where I do have only one record, one BUKRS to be selected, that is not a tabular one. I can say get company code. Okay. At that particular point in time, your select query would be altered a bit. You have to write select over here. You can specify the name of the column that you want to select. Then you have to specify into, and here you have to specify the name of the field into which you want to select. So it would become a bit of like an ABAP, looking wise, not execution wise. Then you would be writing from EKKO, and here you can specify where your mandate equal to session context. And here you can specify EBLN equal to P underscore EBLN, for example. That is something we are passing in the input. So whenever I am selecting a tabular data here, I'll be writing a select query like left hand side would be the tabular content, right hand side would be your select query. When I want to select just a single variable, I can say select this particular column into this, from this, and where my filters are this. Okay, this is how you would be getting the data in the return. If I want to extend the method which I was calling earlier, I can say I want PEBLN also as an input. Let me just make it as a parameter. Afterward, I would say I want PEBLN also input over here. PVBUKRS, I'll be just saying. And I would be just happy to show this particular company code, whichever I'm receiving into the input on the pop-up. I'll just activate this. So let's just say I'll just close this. Here I'm saying I'm executing this. Here I am passing 1710, and here let's just say I want to pass some sort of purchase order. For example, this 45001. And the moment I execute, I am getting 1010 as a company code, which is a valid one. I'll just say enter, and I am getting all the data. So I have the list of purchase order. Let's just re-verify whether we are getting the correct information. So 5781 has a 1710 as a company code. So I'll just pass this, and I'm getting the 1710 as a correct one. Fair enough, working well. Now we already learned when I pass the invalid company code, what would happen? It would not give me any sort of data. When I say I want to pass invalid company code. So for example, I'm passing a purchase order. I want to pass an invalid purchase order, sorry. And let's just say I want to get the company code out of that. So if the as the purchase order is invalid, definitely I cannot have any sort of purchase order company code associated with it. So if I just say execute, it should give me a blank. So let's just try executing this. The moment you execute, you would get an error. Okay, so if you see some sort of error occurred, an exception occurred over here, that we are not getting any sort of information from this PO operation line item number 10. Okay, so this PO operation, some sort of line item number 10, it is raising an exception. Now, why it is happening is this particular select query that we are writing over here, is not returning any valid value. So which can also occur in ABAP, right? When I say I am passing an input which is not correct, the size subversive used to get altered, right? But here it is not that simple. To avoid any sort of such error, we have to ensure that in case I am not getting a right set of information, what the system should return. So I can say select the BUKRS into this from this, but whenever select BUKRS into this is failing, give me the default value as for example null. So when you say null, it means it would give you the default empty value. Okay. When I say I want to re-execute this, see how the behavior, how is the behavior post that. Here I am not getting any sort of input output. I am just getting a null. In case you want to give some sort of value, for example, if the user has said, if I am passing any sort of input which is invalid, give me the default company code as my output. So I can say, okay, I'll just say DFLT. It would just return me this default value. So this default is to specify the default value in case of any sort of failure while executing a statement. Here I am getting DFLT, and if I pass a valid one, then I can expect a valid company code to get popped up, right? So that is the meaning of default. Now, when I say I am using this default function like this, it works, it's giving me the output, but when actually we had not specified, it used to specify as something. Let's just try getting the same dump again just to analyze what it was telling us. Because the dump didn't indicate or pointed out to the default keyword, right? It says during the execution of this procedure, an error occurred and SQL code of database 1299. So if you see, it was giving me an execution error code, SQL error code called 1299. So that is an error code associated with this particular kind of exception that has been raised. In a normal ABAP, we do have an exception hierarchy. For example, when I divide something by 0, I know I would be getting a dump divide by 0. Here I am getting an exception saying CX ABAP AMDP execution failed. In normal ABAP or any sort of other application server based programming language, we do have a exception handler. Same way, when it comes to a database layer language, we do have a exit handler. Okay. And each exit handler is associated with a code. Okay. In case you want to handle that, I don't want to go with the default value. Instead, whenever an exception occurred, I want to write some sort of disciplinary action centrally. So in that case, what you can do is you can define some sort of exit handler, and that exit handler can help you handle this exception. I can say declare, okay, and like we declare a variable, same way we would be declaring exit handler for SQL error code, and here in the code we would be specifying the code that was proposed in the dump. I can say 1299, and here we would be specifying, for example, this begin end. When I say whenever an error occurs, this exit handler would get triggered. It can be empty. You can just declare it and leave it empty. Then also an dump won't occur. And in case you want to do some sort of disciplinary action over here, for example, in case this error occurred, give me the EVBUKRS from DFLT. This is something that you want to specify. Then the system would execute this block in case the execution fails over here, and it would initiate.
Sunil,
Sorry.
sorry. Now, actually, screen was getting blurred, so now I can see.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's fine. Can
Okay.
continue.
Perfect. So in case this execution fails, the system would trigger this exit handler and execute the statement whichever are there. So there can be a number of action depending on your business requirement. You can write over here. I'll just say execute the program again. We commented out default, but still, if you see, if I just execute this, I am not getting a dump. Instead, I am getting the default value. If I pass a valid value for the purchase order, I am getting a proper output. Okay. So that is the meaning of an exit handler. So an exit handler is not always specific to a select query execution failure. Because if you see, it is a failure and it is a dedicated, it is having a dedicated code 1299 over here. Same way, let's just I am dividing 1 by 0, then of course it would raise an exception. If I am declaring a variable which is a 4 character and it is the length of the variable which I uh, passing as an input is exceeding, let's just say those limitations, then also I can expect an exceptions, right? So for that, we can have different sort of error code specified. I can show you. I would be sharing this today along with the recording. I would be sharing this as well. So if you just go to 1299, what it does say, SQL script, no data found. So that is something we are receiving. When I say 0, for example, in case some sort of text common, this, or some sort of divide by 0 occur. So likewise, we can have a different dedicated error code associated with all the particular errors. And there are total 5737 in number, at least for now. Okay. So these are like we do have an exception hierarchy in AWAP, same way we do have an SQL error code hierarchy, and this can be used to handle any sort of exception to make our program failure proof. Okay, I'll be sharing this file with you, and we should ensure that we are handling the right set of exception. So as a developer, we would always be knowing what is something that can fail whenever my program is getting executed. We, while writing our code, we should be having that sort of insight already that what can actually fail over here, right? And based on that, we can handle the exception. Now, if I just go over here, so that is something we learned, how I can handle the default null and how exit handler can also be introduced in an AMDP. Now, what we would be doing is we would be learning certain more built-in functions. Okay, so these functions are seems to be very minor, but it would be of very help whenever you are doing the actual implementation. So there are certain translation keywords, there are certain if null and null if keywords, certain date functions are also available that can help you treat the date when it comes to an AMDP. That is something we would be seeing now. Okay. So we had learned till now many built-in functions, but these built-in functions are specifically to SQL. So for example, we want to go with some sort of translation keyword. So what I'll be doing is I'll be just going through each of them, and then we would be seeing each of those into debugging mode at the same time. Okay. So let's just say I want to work with a translation keyword. When it comes to translation keyword, I do have two functions which can help me translate a string into uppercase. I do have one function which can help me convert the same into a lowercase. So I can declare some sort of string input and output for my example. So I can say declare LVI, I can say uppercase, and here I can define, oh, sorry, n varchar. For example, let's just say it as of 5 character. And here we want to give some sort of default value, uh, which would be, for example, we are having uppercase. So I would be saying, okay, let's just say I do have a QWERTY. Let's just say I want to again have an input, which is for again uppercase, second input, and default value I want to give over here is, for example, okay, so this should be a lowercase because we have a function which can convert to uppercase. So I can say a lowercase one. Um, and the one which is converted to uppercase and lowercase, we would be again using the same to perform our operation. So let's just define the output variable now. I can say output u uppercase 1. We can say output for uppercase 2 and output for lowercase 1. Okay. So what we can have over here is we can have the statements which can help translate our string. Say translations. Here I would be saying I have a LV output of U1 and which would get generated into an uppercase So I would be converting this lowercase string into an uppercase. So for that, what I do have a keyword called upper. And these keywords are very case insensitive. Okay, you can write it in uppercase, lowercase, however you want. This I have written in upper because personally I prefer everything to be written in upper. Otherwise, it's not case sensitive. If I want to convert something to lower, I can say I want to convert something to lowercase. And while writing to lowercase, I just pass the uppercase as an input. And whatever has been converted to lowercase, I want to again use that and convert it to uppercase again, but now using my second function. But as you can see, what we are using over here is, so there is a convention. Ideally, it would be we usually follow. Okay. Many a time, SAP won't give an error whenever you are not following that, but at a certain point in time, it would start giving an error. That's a kind of bit of abnormal. But just have a habit of specifying a column whenever you are using a variable on the right hand side of the equal to. Okay. So these are the translation keyword that we learned. We would be seeing the output into the debugging mode just in a while. Next thing that we want to see over here is I want to learn if null and null if. Right. That is something we would be discussing. So what is an if null? So when I say if null is something which would help you choose one particular parameter from the input. So if null ideally expects two input. Okay, it expects two input, and if the first one is null, then it would give the second one as an output. And if first one is there as an input, which is a not null value, then it would be given the priority and it would be treated as an output. You can consider whenever you are writing a select query, let's just say you are getting the input from the user. In case he is not passing the value, you would like to get the database value instead. Okay, so you can use if null over there, pass the user's input in the first parameter, database column name in the second, and you would get the values in the if null in properly set in the output. Okay, so if null expect two input. If first is not null, then first parameter would be your output. Okay, so for example, I want to go with if null. So for example, I have a let's just say LVI if null. Let's just say this time we would be like to go with integer, and let's just say I want to give default value as a 15. We would be declaring another input variable, and here we would be declaring nothing. So it would be null by default. If null, I can say integer. If null, integer. So what we would be doing is we would be saying I want output over here if null. Okay, so if my first parameter is null, then give me 10 as an output. So here I do have a 15, so I can expect 15 in my output. But when I say into over here, it says if null, if my into over here is null, which it is, then give me 25 as an output. And so here I can expect 25 as an output. So if first parameter is null, then it would give second. If second is, if first is not null, then that would become part of my output. What is happening? SQL error near. Wow, what did just happen? Okay, something. Okay, next thing we want to learn is null if. So null if seems to be opposite of if null, but that's not the case. It also expect two input. Okay, then it would compare both of them. If both are same, then it would return null. Else it would return the very first parameter. So for example, let's just say we went with a character earlier, integer earlier. Now let's just go with a character one. So I want to go with, let's just say, input for null if in varchar, let's just say 4, and here I want to go with some sort of default value called xyz. Output of null if 1. Okay, now I want to expect, I want to use this null if over here. So I can say null if, and here I'll be passing my input. Now, as you can see, xyz and rty both are different. Okay, so as both are different, I can expect the first parameter, which is over here, xyz, would be my part of my output. When I say this is the one, and if I pass null if over here, and here if I want to pass the 2 and 3, which is rty, so I can expect a null to be output because both are same. Okay, so this is how if null and null if would work. We would be seeing the output behavior in debugging mode in a while. And before that, we would just consider the date functions, what all date functions we do have. I can say date functions. Normal ABAP, in normal ABAP, when I say a date function, or I can say date, what is a normal format of date? In normal ABAP, the format of date is ideally YYYYMMDD. This is a format of a date. But when it comes to an AMDP date, it would be of a particular format, and that particular format we can consider it as a YYYYMMDD. So AMDP always follows the ISO standard. Okay, AMDP always follows the ISO standard, and that is why it would all its default date would be in a format of an ISO. The date that we are seeing over here, okay, it is called date, DATE, and the date that we are seeing over here is called dates. That is a difference. This is called dates. And the other one, which is their default in AMDP, is called date, DATE. Uh, for example, I want to get some sort of date. What is the current date, for example? So I can say LV current date, and I'll be just specifying a variable called date over here. To get the current date, what we can do over here is I can just say current date. So once I write LV current date equal to this, it would give me the current date. And this particular date would be in a format of a, as I mentioned, YYYYMMDD. In case I want to convert this DATE into DATS, okay, which is a web standard date. So I can say convert LV current DATS. For example, I want to give the data type, so I can say site datum. I can say this my DATS would be conversion of this date into dates. Just pass this over here and I can expect this particular date to come is my output. And this particular dates would be nothing but this particular date, which is a ABAP standard date. Okay. If I want to perform any operation onto the date, it would always be performed on this DATE because AMDP always expect ISO standard date in my input. So for example, I want to perform uh, I want to get a future date. I can say future date. Its data type is, let's just say, DATE. And here I can say to get the future date after getting 5 days, for example. So I can say on my current date, add, let's just say 5 days, and give me what is the future date that is getting generated. In case you want to get what is the difference between two date, then you can also get that. All you have to do is you can say LV difference equal to, here you would be getting the days between 2 days. So we would be saying dates between 2 days. I would be passing my current date, for example, and the future date in my input. Okay. Same way, if you want to get the components also out of this, if you want to get the day, month, and year, okay. So I can also have, for example, I want to get the DD. And when I say DD, how many characters it would contain? It would contain 2 characters. Year would be 4. When it comes to month, it would always be 2. Year can have a 4 character. So here, if I want to get the information of those LVDD, I can say day of my month, and here I can pass either a variable or current date, whatever I want to pass. So for example, I want to get the information from my current date. I want to get the month. So here I can strictly pass just the month. And for example, I want to get the year over here. Okay, I'll just activate this. Put a breakpoint over here. And let's just say execute this. What did just happen? We are getting 359. That is a good thing. We just started getting an error, and maybe it would be due to some sort of variable overflow. Okay, let's just say we would be going step by step. So it's a good opportunity. Let's just try debugging something. We might have mistyped something. Wow. What it says is 359 AMDP execution failed. So there are either two ways. Let's just say what is 359 saying ideally. Mm, 359 is for length too large. So there is a length of the string which is too large for it to handle. Okay. So this can also occur if I just go back into the class. We just give, yeah, over here if you see, that is why we are not getting the breakpoint. We are passing QWERTY over here, which is a 6 character. We are trying to assign it into a 5. The moment I say 6, just make all of this as a 6. Now we can switch. So if you see, we are having a variables over here. If I just say execute, if you see what we are getting over here is output U1. Output U1 is output of a uppercase translation, which is ZXCV, then lowercase translation, which is QWERTY, then and again uppercase translation over here of the same QWERTY. Output IN, which is a 15, because the first one we passed over here was not null, so it's the same was being passed in the output. But when it comes to over here, I output into, we are getting 25 because the first one is null over here. Then it compared IN1 and 2, and NI1 is XYZ for us because both were not same. But here as both were same, we are getting null in my output. Current date, LV current date, where we do have, it is over here. It is in ISO format. Then we converted it to DATS, which is in a web standard format. Then we get the future date. So after 16, it got me 21. The difference that we got over here is 5 days. The DDMMYYYY, we have 16, where we have a LVMM. Yeah, here it is 4, and we should also be able to get Y. Yeah, here it is 2022. Okay, so this is how the built-in function would work, and it can help you out with any sort of processing going further. And the exception code also, you understood how we can analyze those. So I'll be sharing those. You would also find those handy whenever you are running into any sort of issues. Okay, so this is all about the if null date function and the translation functions. Now we have a fuzzy search and parallel processing on our roadmap. So it's 10:46. Maybe we can take a 5 minutes of quick bio break and we can come back. Before that, any questions on the content that we have covered till now?
Like not in this, like when we use date by converting,
Mm-hmm.
so I just tried an example, like if I give YYYY slash MM slash DD, so it
Mm-hmm.
was not converting to slash, it was converting to dot.
I didn't get your point.
Like now if you give some date format to convert, like
Huh?
like input, it will be like YYYY MMDD, so we want to convert it as by slash.
By
So
slash over here.
yeah.
So if you see, this is an internal format. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you are working in an ABAP also, when you are working with an internal format, what it would be always, it would always be this. But when I
Mm-hmm.
say a user profile parameter, then before actually presenting into the output, it would convert into the YYYY slash. Ideally, standard SAP format says current date would always contain a dash, and that dash is nothing but ISO format. So
Mm-hmm. No,
internally,
no.
you can't.
Internally means like there is like last time when you have a session you mentioned like we can convert it, right? So it is only conversion happens like it will convert from DDMMYY to MMDDYY. Only that date and the month it will swap. That's all. Not about the or to say dash or slash will not change, right?
So it depends on your profile parameter, whatever
Okay.
options are available, we can do that. I'm
I
not
mean
sure
that
what.
that I understood, but if I change my user profile, it will work. But it
Definitely.
will not work in every time in our system, so it will move to quality. Other one will test in their system. So we manually need to convert whichever format we need it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, to replace
you
it.
exactly, you have to do that.
Mm.
And I think we used to have some sort of format call. Let me just
So
show
if
you.
we want to replace, so in my system I come to know now it is coming in the dot format. So in
Hmm.
other system it may come in slash only. But when I give the replace, I will mention that convert the dot to slash. But in this system it will be maybe dash. So I don't have a code for dash there. I mean it will not work my code there.
But why do you want a slash or
They
dot or
want the
dash?
format output format you having slash only.
So maybe you might remember the example that we covered in the demo
Hmm.
in the webinar, right? So what you have to do is you have to work with some sort of string manipulation, substring operation, right? What you can do is you can do the substring. So in my internal, I know doesn't matter what how it would be looking alike in output, but
Hmm.
whenever I'm into my execution, it would always be this format.
Hmm.
So you
Correct.
can break the component and do
So
add the delimiter and I guess concatenate those.
okay, yeah, that's what we manually, I mean, specifically, we will concatenate with slash.
There used to be one more function in SQL script HANA.
Mhm.
I There is this to n worker or to worker it was. Let me see if it helps. So if you see, these are the two worker.
Two worker, okay.
Yeah, and here what we used to pass is yeah, like this. So if you see, we are passing two worker. Here you have a date format, DATE. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are saying I want a slash. So the
Mm-hmm.
moment you say slash, it would give you you would pass this date as an input and you would get this date as an output.
Okay, okay. So whatever that, I mean, year date, if we won't pass like with the dash, I mean, I mean like YYYMMDD, I will pass the
So
input as like.
so yeah, if you see, it would always expect YYYYMMDD. It is saying it is a DAT E that it is getting and it want to convert it to DATE. So ultimately your input would be always this format.
Uh-huh. No, no, I don't, I mean, I'm not sure, like, whatever maybe input, like, I will give
Your
side it.
input, I think you are sure already what would be your input, because your input would be in your program level. That would be internal. Your user profile parameter, however it would be in the debugging mode, in your program execution, you would always get this format.
Yeah,
Correct?
if I get a side item, it will get in this format.
Yeah,
But
but how, what is your source of input then?
uh, it is side item, I mean, like some other field, maybe some from some
Yeah,
table.
okay. From some table, if it is some field and if its data element is a date type, then
Hmm.
definitely you would be getting this field, this sort of input
Okay,
data
assume
only.
assume this is the format. I mean, I assume I'm not sure at all. Maybe this may be format
Okay,
or with dash.
okay,
So that
okay.
time you
Let
can't
me
use
just
that.
say, let me just say, if I am over here, if I just go in EKKO table, for example, if I am executing this, here I am getting some sort of date in this format, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I just double click, I know the date which I will be getting in my program would always be this. This is the right side unconverted value that I'll be getting in my execution.
Mm-hmm.
This is something which the user would be seeing, but the code logic which I would be writing would always be on this, right? and that
Hmm.
would be like this only,
Okay.
provided the table which you are using has a valid date type specified over here.
Date
This
set
should,
8. Okay.
okay, that's the
Ah,
only
that
thing.
is fine. Okay, this may be okay. You assume this will be format, but the example what you showed that to where care
Yeah,
something in
that, yeah, and yeah, this
is having
example,
dash.
it was having dash because this execution, this particular to a varchar, this
Hmm.
string is only available in AMDP, in a SQL script only.
Hmm.
You can't have
Okay.
this code written in a normal ABAP or a CDS.
Okay. 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 Uh-huh.
So if you
There
are
we have
going
to
with
do
AMDP,
concatenation.
exactly as it is AMDP, it is expecting that it should be with a dash.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. That's why
I mean, AMDP it will be dash only. Date.
AMDP always follows ISO format. That's why it would be dash.
Okay. 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 Fine.
And in case you want to switch, let's just say you want to get DD, again
Hmm.
YYYY or any sort of delimiter, just play around with this format and it would give you
Uh-huh.
the output accordingly,
Yeah.
automatically.
Mm-hmm. So this
Okay.
will so in ABAP normal ABAP we have to try with concatenation with them substring.
Yeah, correct. Because it's a SQL, not SQL
Yeah.
script.
Okay. Okay. This format. Yeah. Fine. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I guess let's just take a very quick one then. It's let's just take 2 to 3 minutes of break and we'll just get the back and continue with the other stuff.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
Thank you. Okay. So are you there? Okay, so let's just resume the session then. What we want to learn more over here is two more interesting thing called fuzzy search, parallel processing. Okay, so let's just start with the fuzzy search first. You can say what is a fuzzy search? What is a fuzzy search? So we had learned this earlier that a fuzzy search allows us to do the fuzzily search, or I can say to read our database on a bit fuzzily. I can say if I do have a database which is having an entry, so let's just go into my table, for example. And in this table, for example, I do have a short text like this, and my user want to search for example, drivetrain. He is not sure the shock kit. So ultimately, let's just say my user want to search for a material. For example, you are on e-commerce site, you want to order a mobile. You want to order a battery or a washer or a laptop or some sort of service. Now, as the user is not sure, he might type AC in smaller, he might mistype the maintenance spelling, he might write laptop in all lowercase or upper and lowercase combination. He is not sure what is the written into the database. But if we think how a database would be doing the searching, when I say I am searching with the short text, the database would be executing a select query which says, okay, select from the database where txz01 equal to the short text which I'm receiving into the input, right? And as I'm going with the equal to, it might fail. So if we can have a mechanism with the help of which my database won't search with the exact content, but instead it would search with the percentage of matching that my user's input is having with the content, then it would help me do the fuzzy search. So for example, I want to implement a fuzzy search over here. I can say I want to go with a fuzzy search over here. And here I want to go with a, let's just say, some sort of short text input. I can expect my user would be adding it in my input, and I am there to give him all the short of details of the particular purchase orders. So for example, whatever purchase orders information he pass, I can give him the full purchase orders line item information. So I can say exporting a value ETPO lines. Just generate a type for this. Text. So we just define a particular data type for my PO lines. I am just using it over here. So I do have a structure defined over here. Now what I want is that whenever user pass something in a short text field, a input which I have provided him, the database should be able to search with that content. Okay, for that I'm using AMDP. So I'm using by database procedure for HANA database. Language I'm using over here is called SQL script, and options read only. I want to get PO lines. So what I'll be doing, I'll just say ETPO lines. What was the exact name? It was ETPO line over here. I'll be just selecting select EBLN, EBLP. I can say short text, Metna, MENGE, MEINS from KPO, where I can say my mandate equal to session context, and I can say short text equal to something which the user is passing, which have its own implications. We would be correcting this as well. Currently, we are going with the normal search. Then we have to go by using EKPO. So I am receiving the short text as an input. I am passing it in the input for the purchase order table reading, and I am just selecting all the purchase order line items. I'll just activate over here. Let's just modify the program once this class get activated. Yeah, it's activated now. And here, for the time being, let's just comment this out. Comment this out as well. We are expecting a short text to be part of my output, sorry, input. And we would be calling that method from here for the fuzzy search. Here I am passing p underscore tx01. And we are just copying, pasting it over here. I'll just activate this. And when I just say execute this, for example, I want what is the content that the user is looking for. For example, we can say laptop. If I just say execute, I am getting one line over here. For example, I am also allowing my user to type something in lowercase as well. So there used to be something called lowercase like this. So my user can type in uppercase or lowercase, however he wants. I can say laptop. Now I am not getting any sort of output over here. Why it is happening? Because here I am expecting my user to pass the input very accurate, exactly to the one which I do have in the database. Okay, I am not expecting any sort of minor mistakes, but that is not how a user always uses the application, right? So to make the application more user friendly, what we can have over here is I can comment out this line, and while passing any sort of input to the column, rather than passing equal to, I'll pass contains. Okay, here I'll pass the name of the column, field which is giving me the input, and next thing which I'll be doing over here is I'll be just saying to what level the user's input should match. So I can say fuzzy, and here I can provide the threshold of the fuzziness. So for example, I am saying 5.5. So it means this is nothing but a fuzziness threshold, which can vary from 0.1 to 1, where 0.1 being the 10% matching, one being the 100%. And we are saying even though the user's input match 50%, give me the particular line into my output. So my user can uh, enjoy the liberty he is getting and can easily search the information. Now when I say laptop, here I can see I am getting all the laptop specified into the database. There are laptop written in uppercase, laptop written in camel case, and I pass the laptop which is LAP lower and TOP upper. So that is not matching with any of the content. But now as I do have any sort of matching content available into the database is not focusing that exact content should match. Instead, it is allowing me to get the partial matching data as well by following the fuzziness information, fuzzy search. So this is something we can call it as a fuzzy search. And here, as we did the fuzzy search only on one column, likewise, you can have and or anything that you want to specify n number of time over here. You can specify by using contains and here the fuzziness information. Depending on how who are the list of user, how, whether your application is being used with the value help or without a free text search, you can decide how open you want to make your application. You can decide to make your fuzziness threshold varying from 0.1 to 1, but try to make it always minimum to 0.5 to 7.75, 0.7. So it should be somewhere in at around 0.5 to 0.7. Okay. So this is how the fuzziness would work. I hope it's clear. Okay. So this is something that you would find very handy and you would be using it in many of the application to make the applications more usable. Okay. Now let's just move one more step forward. When I say I am doing a fuzzy search, it means I am doing or I can say I am performing some sort of operation which can create some sort of overhead for the database. So for example, when I say I want to search with a, for example, short text txz01 and equal to my database engine can directly search for individual line and directly pass the input, match it. If it's there, then it would give the line into the output. But when I say fuzziness, what the system would do is it would derive a statistics, derive a matrix of comparison for each line it is comparing, and then we'll see, okay, whether the matrix which they have got is the matching amount, the percentage of matching is reaching till the threshold that you specified. If yes, then of course it can be qualified in your output. If not, then it cannot be part of your output. It should be discarded, right? So this is one of the complex process that we can think of, which a database is actually doing, and it is doing it for all the millions of purchase order. One more thing you can think of is, let's just say there is a particular purchase order. Out of this purchase order, I want to create a let's just say goods issue, or I can say GR first. I want to create. I want to create a good issue. I want to create a invoice out of that. But when I am creating it for one purchase order, and let's just say I do have 10 purchase order for which I want to do this task in a single go. Till the time one purchase order is getting processed, all the 9 purchase order has to wait. Why? Because for one process, there would always be only one work process assigned. Full SAP works on a work processes, individual thread which executes a particular task. A particular session has only one work process assigned to it. Okay. Now, as I do have, let's just say 10 purchase orders, for example, and now if one work process, if one purchase order is getting processed, I do have, let's just say 999 work process, ideal work process, I can say, which are available. Okay. Then I can also allow my this 999 work process to contribute over here and do this particular set of execution which is left. So till the time this first purchase order is getting converted into GR, GI and invoice, this all the purchase order can also start processing based on the number of work processes are getting assigned to this, and this can work parallelly. Okay, and so if one particular task was taking, let's just say 10 second, and so it would take around 100 seconds to perform this task. But if all these tasks are continuing at the same time, then I can expect whole task to get completed within 10 to 30 seconds, depending on the number of work process allocated. So parallel processing allows complex tasks to be executed in a faster manner. Only condition is all those executions should be independent of each other. If I am saying I am doing the GR for second purchase order, it should not have any dependency with the first one. So depending on the business scenario, you can decide whether you want to go with the parallel processing or not. First processing we decide or discuss was on the fuzzy search. So let's just say I have a 10 purchase order. One work process can scan this line, another work process can scan this line. So it would become faster and we can aggregate the results going forward. Right. To have this parallel processing implemented in ABAP or AMDP, we have a map merge function. How we can do that? So here map merge would be there, which would have a combination of database procedure and database function, which would execute this task in a single go. How? Let's just learn that. So what we want over here is we can say I want a particular database procedure. Okay. So what I want is I want a particular database procedure for the parallel processing. So I can say parallel processing I want to perform with database procedure. And here I'll be passing, let's just say as an input, a full company code for which I want the fuzzy search to occur. So I can say I want to perform search for this BUKRS. And here I am expecting all those matching lines to be part of my output. This is something I am expecting. So I am going company code. I am going at, let's just say, company code level. So what I can do over here is I can say by database procedure for HANA database language, I can expect is SQL script and a read-only operation the system would be performing. Now, when this operation is getting performed, let's just what we want to do over here is we want to break down the task in a way that individual work process can contribute. So I want to split my process. So rather than allowing all the particular tasks to get executed for all the purchase order at the same time, let me just split the information based on a purchase order. So even though I'm selecting the data from line item, here I'll be first fetching the header information only for those particular purchase orders, company code, and then I would be sending one purchase order, and I would be expecting my relevant fuzzy search engine to check whether there are any line matching with the input. If yes, then I can expect it in to be the output. Okay. So what I can do over here is, okay, one more thing we forgot is we want this particular short text also to be there as a part of the input. Just say I want to make this short text enable only. I don't want the company code. I want the same set of information for I can say short text and the PO line. Just individually, it was being executed in an individual process. Now it would get executed in a parallel process manner. What I can do is first I'll get the PO header data. And we learn that whenever I directly declare a variable, and if right hand side I do have a select query with a tabular content, it would give me the table declared automatically. I can say it would auto declare that table. I can say select TBLN from EKKO from this particular current client. So I'm doing this all in a single go. So what I do have now, I do have a particular purchase order available over here. I do have a particular table which is containing all the purchase orders from the system. Now I want to fill the exporting parameter with the matching data of line item. Okay, so I can say get matching line item. And for that, I would need a database function. That database function would be taking one purchase orders number along with the short text at a time and giving me the resultant output only for the dedicated purchase order. Okay, that is something I am expecting over here. So I can say I want to have a database function. So this is the second way which we mentioned. So there are two ways with the help of which we can call the database function. One, within the particular method, AMDP method, we can call a database function or via the table function. We can call a database function directly from ABAP program. That is something we discussed earlier, right? So I can say database function. Here I can say importing value which I am expecting. Sorry, there should be a comma. Importing value here I am expecting a EBLN to be my input. We would also need the short text so that system can also identify the input and they can also get only the relevant line. And here we can expect, as it is a database function, what it would be having. It would be having a returning component. I can say RTPO lines and its type would be TPO lines. So implementation is missing. So let me add the implementation. But this time this implementation would be by database function, not the procedure. Now I would be processing this logic that we did earlier. Okay. Here, as I do have a returning parameter, I can directly write return. So same fuzzy search logic we are implementing over here, and we would need a EKPO to process this. Now, on top of the input that we are having, we want one more input. That input we can call it as an EBLN. So we are only doing the searching per purchase order. Okay. So I do have a database function now which can search per purchase order with the user's input and get the result for that particular purchase order. Then I would need an engine which can merge all the purchase orders result in a single go. Okay, and for that I would need to call this method from this particular parallel processing method. So what I can do over here is I can say I would need this ETPO line as my output over here. Okay, and here we would be using a function called map merge. It would merge the content. Okay, this LTPO header data is something for which we want this whole execution to occur. So this would be my first input. The first input would contain all the lines for which the execution should occur. Next thing we would be doing is we would be calling that particular function. So I can say ZB M22 AMDP underscore child over here. And here we would be calling this method called PO line info df And what all things it would expect in the input? Same as what we have already defined, right? So I can say we can have two parameters in the input as we have already defined. What are those two parameters? Are EBLN and TX.01, where I can get the EBLN from this PO header data. So I can say PO header data dot EBLN. We can have a short text also as an input. So I can say this P TX.01. Secondly, whenever you are calling a method, it should be defined somewhere. So I can say PO this, and it should be there in the using. Now, what we are doing over here is we are getting all the purchase orders. One by one, individual purchase order I am passing to the database function, which is checking, okay, is there any line item matching with this? And it would get the result back to this calling point and the results would be merged. This execution would be done in parallel mode and the system would keep on merging all the result individual work processes are returning. Okay. So the moment I just say activate and this parallel processing DP. Okay, earlier when I just say execute this, the laptop, I was getting 3 records. I'll just go back over here and what I'll just do is I have this particular class. It is having parallel processing DP. I'll just hello AMDPC and I'll just now hand over this responsibility to parallel processing database procedure to execute the task that we actually requested. Server is behaving a bit slow. Yeah. So we are still getting the same output, but this time the ideal work process, whichever are there into the system, would be responsible for getting the data. So this is just a minor example that we discussed, but the same way this map merge can be triggered for individual one. And like we discussed, let's just say if you are generating GR, GI, invoice, anything, any sort of complex processing which is happening, complex analytical process can be part of the database function. And for individual set of input, it can be processed. Okay, so it is very much possible, easy, and the execution would get help of multiple thread to process the same task it was doing alone. Okay, so this is how the parallel processing works. Okay, now let's just go one more step forward and learn something called AMDP body. Okay, body we all know, we all have learned body. We know body is nothing but a business add-in which helps us doing the particular processing for a particular SAP given program. So what is ultimately a body? Body is nothing but a object oriented way of enhancing any sort of execution. So I can say AMDP. It is nothing but ABAP managed database procedure. Same way we do have ABAP AMDP body. Body are nothing but a business add-ins. Whenever SAP generates any sort of standard programs, it gives us a point, enhancement point. So in case you want to do some sort of pure project related, customer related enhancement, okay, at that particular point in time, you can implement this body. And this body would be nothing but a implementation of an interface. And hence it would be redefinition of certain methods that you would be doing and you would be defining your own set of logic. Now, as body is an object oriented way of enhancement, um, we can also have a class. So oops mainly works on a class. So if a class is an AMDP class, I can expect that rather than writing a normal method which gets executed on an application server, AMDP body gets executed on a DB layer. And hence it would make your execution work faster. Okay. So when I talk about a body, what all thing a body can have? I can have a single use body, I can have a multi-use body, I can have a filter body likewise. And a body would also have a some sort of default implementation. Being if a body's implementation, if a body is there into the system, if none of the implementations are done, what is a default implementation that should get executed? That is called a default implementation called fallback class. Okay. Let's just try to observe into the system how a body would be looking alike when it comes to an AMDP body. For example, I am going into AC18 and I do have, let's just say, a bomb body. I'm just opening this. Here, if you see, there is a checkbox called AMDP body and it is having a fallback class defined. If I just open some other one, for example, a lot sizing body, then this is also an AMDP body, a checkbox is ticked, and it's a multi-use body. It means I can have more than one implementations done. I can define more than one implementation, and there is also a fallback class. If I open one more body, then here you would be getting that. Let me just open the enhancement point of the same. That this is not a AMDP body. It is a multi-use and it's internal body, but it's not an AMDP body and it does not have a fallback class. So one thing for your knowledge is when I say a AMDP body, fallback class is mandatory. So whenever you are defining a body, be it your you are using standard body or if you are also defining your custom body at your own, then fallback class is something which should be there for sure when it comes to an AMDP body. You can't have an AMDP body without a fallback class defined. Okay, so for example, here we do have a bomb body, which is an AMDP body. Fallback class is there for lot sizing also. There is also a fallback class defined. I can't have any sort of AMDP body without a fallback class. Second thing is filters. AMDP body cannot be a filter body. AMDP body cannot expect filters as an input. So you can't have a AMDP body which is expecting a filter. Okay. So these are the two things that you should be keeping in mind. Now, when I say I do have a body, I am having a standard execution, for example, MRP run, and you want to write your own set of logic, then rather than forcing the code to get executed at application server, if you can make it execute on the database layer, then of course it would be very helpful when it comes to a performance. And that's why we do have a AMDP body. So whenever you are searching for a body, you search the way of searching of body would be the similar. But whenever you are identifying whether it's a normal one or AMDP, you can directly look into this checkbox. If it is an AMDP body tick, then of course it would be an AMDP supported body and you can do the implementation in a way of AMDP. For example, let's just say I want to do the implementation for this MRP lot sizing body. I can go over here and just say overview and check all the overview. So here I can have multiple implementations done. I can define my old set of implementation, say enhancement create. I can say I want to do the implementation. So there is an enhancement implementation name I am proposing. I can say MRP run body implementation. I'll just say enter. Let me just make it as a local for now. And here I'll be just defining body implementation. Implementation class, I can say, let's just say ZCL, and I want to implement the, for example, a lot sizing body. Okay, so it would create an enhancement implementation, AMDP body implementation. But if you see it's not implemented yet, it won't be triggered. There is a class which we just got over here. If I open this class over here in my um, Eclipse tool, I can say open this particular class over here. Here you would find that this particular body has certain methods which are yet to be implemented. So what you can do is you can say click over here and just say add implementation for the missing method. So this missing method is nothing but this. As it is an interface containing inside a class, it is this class responsibility to implement this method. That is how we do the body implementation. So I'll just add implementation over here. And if I want to do the implementation in a AMDP manner, what you can do is you can define by database procedure, HANA database, language SQL script, and options read only. But if you just put a cursor over here, it says database procedure managed by ABAP can only be done in a class with a marker interface. So what you can do is you can copy the name of this interface. This is a marker interface, the very first step of creating any sort of AMDP body. I can say interface over here, and you can save this. Now, after saving this, you would be finding that you are now in a position to write your logic. Same way, whatever knowledge that we gain, you can write your logic by following that. And if you want to open this particular class, you would be finding that this class has a method which is having certain inputting and certain changing parameters. Now we learn that I can't have a AMDP body with an empty body, but right. But if I do have a AMDP body with a changing parameter, its body can be empty, right? So that's what we did. And I can just activate this class. At the moment you activate this class, if you just go back, you can also activate this implementation. Now, if you see, the system is saying the implementation would be triggered whenever you are calling this particular execution flow, which triggers this body. Okay. As we don't have sufficient data available in the sandbox system, we won't be able to trigger the execution. But in your case, you can, whenever required, you can implement this body considering the importing and exporting parameter. You can write your logic. So here, the logic that you could write is considering the date, schema, and net requirement, you can consider the controlling and the result parameters, or I can say you can change those. So this is how you can implement the AMDP body, write your logic, and it's a very simple, it's a very quick compared to the normal body execution, normal body implementation. And execution wise also, it is very quick. I hope it's clear, or is there any sort of confusion or doubt?
No.
Oh, perfect. Yep, I guess then this is it. We do have for today's session and BAP on HANA. So thank you. Thanks a lot for being the part of the journey, and we would see each other in future for sure. And yeah, when time permits, I would try to spare some time on the query that you had actually shared, and would be coming back to you on soon. Actually, I'm running a bit busy, so I'm not getting a chance to look into it
Yeah,
right now.
sure. Yeah.
But I'll
Okay.
get back to you on that, and I'll be sharing the recording and the relevant things, content promised. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
It was nice knowing you, and yeah, see you again.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.
Thank
Ian.
you. Bye bye.